Hey everyone, this is Joe from Dream Life. I'm uploading an episode I did with my dad a few weeks back. We talk about the band Chicago and the city Chicago. I hope you like it.
Man, I think you'll agree. I've been pretty lax as far as discipline is concerned, and golly, nobody enjoys a joke more than I do. But I would like the executive officer returned. Now, we've looked in the torpedo tubes, we've looked in your bags, and I mean, it's been over 2 weeks, man, and we're just damn lucky that it wasn't the navigational officer or someone real important like that. Looking back on the mutiny.
Introduction by Chicago. You're listening to Dream Life on badradio.biz. My name is Joe, and today I have another very special guest, so everyone please welcome Joe Ortigara, my dad. Dad, are you there?
Yes, I am, and it's an honor to be here.
Thank you.
And,
How's your day going?
it's been a great day. I'm in Tinley Park, a suburb of Chicago, and we have almost perfect weather for a holiday weekend, which is rare.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a big, kind of crazy family weekend. We had a tie-dye party at my sister's for my niece's birthday, so we got to tie-dye some clothes and accessories, which was fun. And then my dad is soon to be 93. That's Joe's grandfather, and that's on Tuesday. So we had like a driveway get together, and especially my nephew Lars is pretty good on the piano and singing, and so he provided the entertainment, and that was also fun. So, so it's been a big family weekend and just perfect. So
cool, good to hear. Well, I invited you on the show this week because we were thinking about, if you could highlight a certain band or a certain scene or something like that. And, one that you thought of right away was the band Chicago. And, we're already hearing these connections. You're from Chicago, they're from Chicago, 60s going into 70s. So there's a lot there that we could talk about, but where do you think we should start when we're talking about the band Chicago?
Well, yeah, all of them, there were 7 original members, and 6 of them grew up in Chicago, and even Robert Lamb, who was the keyboard guy who did a lot of writing, they say he's from New York, but I find out he came here when he was 14, so he was a kid when he came to Chicago, so he did some growing up here too. And so it's kind of, easy to be proud of a band that came from your own town.
Yeah.
And then as a kid, my father was in the music business. And so he introduced me to different type of music like jazz and even people he knew would be playing in like kind of lounges. And so yeah, I heard a lot of music besides just the Beatles, which I'm not knocking the Beatles. Beatles are amazing. But besides rock and roll, I was listening to other music. And I have a sister named Anna, and she loved Broadway. And so that kind of expanded what we listened to at home too. And so Chicago's kind of brought that all together because they were, at least all their horn guys went to DePaul University, which was a big music school at the time in Chicago. So they were, like whatever.
Classically trained or whatever.
Classically trained, yeah, they could do symphony music and stuff like that, and you can hear it in arrangements. That the 3 horns, which are usually the sax, the trombone, and the trumpet, really blend together well. And so my taste kind of, I loved it when you could have not just. I mean, I love rock and roll. If you did Cream or some straight ahead rock and roll band, but Chicago brought that extra. A little bit of symphony, a little bit of big band, a little bit of jazz, all thrown in, which is really hit. It was perfect for me.
Yeah, I always thought of them as being like kind of rock music for adults, like a little bit more, mature. But then I was thinking like there really aren't that many bands like them, in that it's like, a really solid rock band that also has this really like well thought out horn section. To me, it's like I always connected to like jazz band at school, but it's like you don't really see that many bands as big as them who do that, like both things so well. They're pretty unique in that way, I think.
The other 2 bands at about the same time, Blood, Sweat, and Tears was a lot like that. And Blood, Sweat, and Tears was kind of like a New York-based band, and then there was another band called Chase, because the head guy was Bill Chase, and they had 4 trumpeters who all had experience in big bands, and they had an amazing sound too. And they would have been maybe a couple years later, but those are the 3 rock bands you think of that really used horn section.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, next, I think you've picked out a lot of kind of earlier stuff, so we can just keep on, talking about this. But this next song that you have pulled up is called "In the Country." So which album is this one from?
That's from their first album, and the
Okay.
first album is called Chicago Transit Authority.
Mm-hmm.
And then by their second album, which is less than a year later, then they go just by Chicago. So.
Mm-hmm. And when that first album came out, like, were these songs that were on the radio, or is this more of a local thing that you knew about? Or were you even listening to them at the time?
By the time the albums were coming out, they were already, being the way a band was heard back then, besides going to clubs,
Mm-hmm.
was on FM radio. Like FM radio was kind of new back then. It was before that it was AM radio, and it was AM radio would play short songs like most Beatles songs were less than 3 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
And when the Beatles came out in the early 60s, there was no FM radio yet. And so it was just really quick pop songs. And when FM, that was sort of like more underground and sophisticated, and they started playing songs that might be 6 or 7 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the big stations in Chicago was WBBM FM. And Bob Surratt, who, if you're a Chicago kind of a guy, you know him from the news and stuff like that. But originally he had the morning WBBM show, and so you could listen to that when you're getting ready for school. And that's where you heard new music, like Chicago, Santana, a lot of really good bands that were just breaking in very late 60s, early 70s. That before you'd buy a record or you would listen to them on the radio. So.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, let's take a listen to this one. This is "In the Country" by Chicago.
Oh, Oh, I wrote Mind Gone Haywire. I'll take the alphabet. Trouble in Doggyland. Let's see, Howdy Doody, Man or Myth. And I did the Apple Pie Hubbub. And of course, the Apple Pie Hubbub was a significant novel for me because that's when I first started using verbs.
As I was walking down the street one day, a man came up to me and asked me what the time was that was on my watch. Yeah, I said, does anybody really know what time it is? Does anybody really care? If so, I can't imagine why. We've all got time enough to cry. I was walking down the street one day. A pretty lady looked at me and said her diamond watch had stopped cold dead. And I said, does anybody really know what time it is? Does anybody really care? If so, I can't imagine why. We've all got time enough to cry. And I was walking down the street one day, people running everywhere, being pushed and shoved by people trying to beat the clock. Oh, I just don't know. I don't know. And I said, yes, I said, does anybody really know what time it is? Does anybody really care? If so, I can't imagine why. We've all got time enough to die. Everybody's worried.
Does anybody really know what time it is by Chicago? Before that, we listen to In the Country by Chicago because it's a Chicago episode. So, Dad, I'm wondering, you said before that because my grandpa kind of worked in the music industry, that you kind of had a sense of the venues in the city at the time. So could you explain like what type of environment Chicago kind of formed, or I didn't say that right, but basically like what the rock scene was like, or the music scene in Chicago?
Well, Chicago's famous for its blues, which were, a lot of the blacks that came up from the South, like your Muddy Waters and people like that. They came and they had some, they got that going in 40s, 50s. And I think that influenced rock and roll a lot, even like Chess Records, which is famous for recording a lot of blues stuff. And you think about the first, like, what's his name? Chuck Berry and Bo Diddley were both with Chess Records. And some people give them credit for kind of inventing rock and roll.
Yeah.
So rock and roll was there, and the black influence was there. With Chicago, they kind of connect Terry Kath's vocals to sound a little bit like a Ray Charles style in a way.
He had that kind of gruff voice in the band, right?
Right, and the lowest voice, and Peter Cetera had the highest voice, and then Robert Lamb, who was just singing lead there on Anybody Knows What Time It Is, he was kind of in the middle, so they could harmonize well because they were different registers. But I don't know. Chicago, when you think about it, is there's so many kinds of music that came from Chicago. They say that's the birthplace of gospel, of blues. It was one of the beds of jazz. Same thing when blacks came up from the South, St. Louis and Kansas City, Chicago, New York. Those are like the four cities that they really peg as the places where jazz came about. And so that influence was on the streets too. So a lot of different music. And also I think that there were certain places, like when the Beatles came at first, and Chicago also played at the amphitheater, which was in the stockyards, which was kind of like sometimes a big hall where animals were like auctioned and shown, displayed. So it's kind of crazy that would also be a place where there were some of the early rock concerts. But that was one of the first big indoor venues that Chicago had as a city.
Was that before like the Bulls Stadium, do you think? Actually, they did have concerts in the United Centers are basketball and hockey stadium now, but the Chicago Stadium was predated that for hockey and basketball, and it was a very hard building. It was all like brick and wrought iron and concrete. So they'd have concerts in there. We saw Chicago in there, but the sound bounced all over the places. It wasn't a great acoustic place to have music. And also McCormick Place is our big convention center on the lakefront in Chicago. And there's something they call the Erie Crown Theater, which is part of McCormick Place. And it's a pretty big stage and concert place that's set up more for music. And so you might go see concerts there too. Like again, when this really exciting time in Chicago, late 60s and 70s, I was like just graduating grammar school, so I wasn't going to too many live shows, and there were some bars that it would have live music, but I wasn't going there either. So, but one thing that was interesting, probably in Chicago, and I bet in other parts of the country too, at one time, high schools used to have dances all the time. Like if you had 3 or 4 high schools in the area, almost every weekend somebody had a dance. And you saw some good music there. I can't say that Chicago ever played in high school dances. Probably the bands that the guys in the Chicago guys were in other bands before they made it to Chicago. I'm sure they played high school because like kind of your garage bands. If you ever made it out of the garage, the first place you went probably was a high school to get paid $50 for the night to play dance, cover music. Yeah. So that would be a that's pretty important rock scene too. Like in my neighborhood, Styx was they were the hot high school band when I was in
late grammar school and high school. So,
Mm-hmm.
so some bands who made it out started out in high school.
Shadows of Night was another one, right?
Shadow of Night, right? Yeah.
Well, yeah. I don't mean to just be listing bands, but another thing that I want to ask you about Chicago is that, like you were saying, there are 3 singers, and then with the horn players, do you know how they wrote songs? Because it seems like it would be like such an operation, kind of, to see who's doing what and kind of make it all go together as well as it does.
Well, I know that they were trying to, first they were doing like more covers. It sounded like they did a lot of rhythm and blues covers, but they would make pretty cool horn arrangements. I don't think any of that stuff's recorded, and they were playing, they were probably playing in, nightclubs around Chicago. It sounds like a lot of them were owned kind of by the mafia. But when they tried to start writing their own music, the club owners would get mad because they thought the people didn't want to hear new music. They wanted to hear covers. Yeah. So they got fired quite a few times out of clubs. If they got like hired for the week, they get fired by like Wednesday. And so then their producer, James William Gershio, he had some success with an early Chicago band called the Buckinghams. He produced some of their hits. So I think he had some money to play with. So he told Chicago, "You're never going to make it in Chicago. You got to get to the West Coast." So he rented a house for him. I guess it was a pretty small 2-bedroom home, but all 7 guys lived there, and they had like 6 months where all they did was practice. And if you look at who wrote the songs, Robert Lamb, the keyboard guy, wrote a lot of songs. Terry Kath wrote songs. James Pankow, the trombonist, he wrote a lot of songs too. But it sounds like a lot of times they would come into the practice and say, "Here, I got this idea," and then the whole group would take it and run with it, and then Pankow and Parazator would figure out a horn arrangement, and then they would take it out to the clubs and play it a while too. So really they developed a ton of music, so that when they finally started making albums, like their first 3 albums were all double album sets. So you're talking like maybe 18 songs.
Yeah, and year after year.
Yeah, even less than, I think the first one was sometime in 69. The next one was in the beginning of 70. And then Chicago 3 came out soon after that, like maybe a year later. So they were really, that's why I like the early Chicago time. It was really a ball of creative energy. They were just coming out with so many songs really fast. Then after, they slowed down a little bit. And some of their more famous songs came out later, but they were more polished. But it just didn't seem to have that early energy like the first stuff. So.
Yeah. Cool. Well, let's listen to more songs, and then I think that there's plenty of more stuff that I'd like to ask you about. So this next one we have queued up is 25 or 6 to 4.
And I would say, this is probably like Terry Kath in the early time. He was very influential on the band, and he was an amazing guitarist, electric guitarist. And if you really concentrate on kind of the middle of the song where he just goes off on his guitar, I think that this should be one of the like top 10 rock guitar solos there is. So
awesome.
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and then let's talk about him more afterward, because it sounds like there's a lot that I should learn about him. Okay. So this is 25 or 6 to 4 by Chicago.
Thank you.
Waiting for the break of day.
capital.
Whoa. That was 25 or 6-4 by Chicago. And Dad, just like you said, Terry Kath really shreds on that one in a very great. What am I trying to say? It's clear that he plays with a lot of heart and really in a kind of rough emotional style that I think is really cool. But yeah, I feel like I know pretty lot about classic rock, but you don't really see his name coming up on lists of like best guitarists from that era or whatever, as far as I know. So that kind of makes me more interested in him. So where do we start when we're talking about Terry Kath?
I've been this last week. I've been listening to a lot of interviews on their computer of Chicago guys, and they were talking about when they were in L.A. practicing. There was one club that I've heard of. It was pretty famous, Whiskey A Go Go. I think it was either in L.A. or just next to L.A. And so they would get a shot at playing there once in a while. And they played, and they were like back in the dressing room, and Jimi Hendrix comes to the door, and they said like he had an aura around his head. They said, "Oh my God, Jimi Hendrix!" And he came in and says, "I can't believe you're lead vocalist, and he plays guitar better than I do." And
wow.
And so Terry Kath and Jimi Hendrix got to be good friends, and Jimi Hendrix was already famous, so he had a national tour of concerts, and he said, "I want you guys to open for me." So then Chicago, before they were famous, were an opening band for the Jimi Hendrix, and they said that Jimi Hendrix and Terry Kath would just get together and jam with each other, and they were both like masters of the wah-wah pedal. So I think they gave each other energy, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Cool.
And one other thing to mention on the 25 or 64, the lead singer, Robert Lamb, wrote that song, but the lead singer is Peter Cetera. And it's kind of a cosmic song with a lot of energy. And he's got that high voice that just really fit in perfectly for that song.
Yeah. It's the production on these songs are also beautiful. It all really just has a great sound. His guitar on that one, especially, just a really solid sound that goes into the mix really well.
I've heard that because from these interviews, they said that his guitar of choice was a Fender Telecaster. But then if you watch concerts of him, sometimes he's playing a Strat, sometimes he's playing a Gibson SG. And
I noticed that.
Sometimes he used a Les Paul too. So I guess once he had the money, he had a nice collection.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. And you just mentioned concerts, and you've told me a lot about the ones that you think are really like, you're saying, maybe there's a 3 or 4 year period, especially, when bands are young, where they just have this fierce energy that's like lightning in a bottle. And there are a few concerts from this like 69, 70 time period that you really like. So I guess if there's anyone, listening who wants to know more,
right.
What are those concerts?
Let's see. I'm going to blank out on one. And what did I tell you?
I think the one's in Amsterdam from 1969, right?
Yeah, 69 Amsterdam. That's good. And then just after that, Tanglewood in 1970. So then you see where Terry Kath is really like the center of the band. He's up front and center. He stops out the music. He's just, and he and Danny Seraphin, a drummer, when he's doing a solo, it's like they're on just in another zone together. Really fun to see. And back then there were no like big screens behind showing you stuff. There was no fancy lighting. Guitarists didn't keep on switching guitars. They did the whole concert with one guitar.
Yeah, that's crazy when I think about it.
And they had, not to say they didn't have nice equipment, but they got such a beautiful sound out of pretty simple, like no digital tricks like they do these days. So
yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, this next one we have queued up is "Color My World." Anything you want to preface this with?
Actually, I was looking into it because there was a whole back from their college days. It's set up as a ballet. They call it Ballet for a Girl in Buchanan, and there's several movements to it. The trombonist Pankow wrote all of this stuff, but "Color My World" it's a pretty song with the flute, and I pretty much any guy around my age or any lady probably either had a homecoming or a prom named "Color My World." It was very popular. It was a good slow dance at a high school dance. So, but it's pretty. So
Awesome.
Go ahead.
Cool. This is "Color My World" by Chicago.
Time goes on, I realize just what you mean to me. And now that you're near, promise your love that I've waited to share and dreams of our moments together. Color my world with hope of loving you.
Oh, God, are you calling again? God, Richard, please, just don't do this to yourself. I mean, why don't you go home and bathe?
I'm with you. It doesn't matter where we are or what we're doing. I'm with you, that's all that matters. Time passes much too quickly. wish I could sing it to you. Oh, 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 oh. Mostly I'm silent, silent, la 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 la. Never think of the right words to say when I kiss you. I feel 1,000 different feelings, color of chills all over my body. And when I feel them, I quickly try to decide which one I should try to put into words. Oh no, try to put into words. Oh, 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 oh. Mostly I'm silent, silent. La 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 la. Silent. Only the beginning, what I want to feel forever. Yeah. Oh, oh. Yes, only the beginning, what I want to feel forever. Only the beginning. Oh, now just a start. Yeah, I got to get you into my life, mama. Got to get you next to me. Yeah, all in the beginning. Oh, now just a start. Hey, 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 hey.
All right. That's Beginnings by Chicago. Before that, we listened to Color My World by Chicago. So that's that. Well, our hour is wrapping up. But Dad, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Okay, I encourage your listeners to check out that Tanglewood concert, and they'll see some of those same songs. And Chicago had a great, they're still around, and so they had a lot of big hits on later albums. But I just like that early time, before they knew they were going to be famous, that they were just had so much energy.
Yeah, and looking back on them, like, what after all these years do you still like? What sticks out about them, especially in this era, maybe?
I don't know. They were, like I say, when you're like, at the end of grammar school and beginning of high school, when you can start making some decisions, I think that just sticks with you, because it's such a influential time in your life. That I think that's why I love that music from that time. And people who grew up in the 50s loved Elvis, or people who came before me, which I know Elvis was great, but I never was really into Elvis, and everything else from that time too. Even like the cars that came out then, the muscle cars of the late 60s. I think they're so cool. But that's just, I think it's maybe that's when your brain is ready to take stuff in. So I don't know. That was a great time for me, and Chicago would be the background music for my life story, sort of.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, well, let's close out with "Make Me Smile." So again, thanks for coming on the show, and thank you everyone for listening.
Yeah, you guys have a great week.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Here we go.